Welcome to The Explainer. Sometimes the best way to understand history isn't through big battles or famous presidents, but through the life of a single person. Today, we've got something really special. We're opening up a window into the past, using a real interview from 1860 to tell the story of a woman who saw America grow up right before her very eyes. And that quote right there, that was her core belief. After living through so much change, so much joy, and yeah, some real heartbreak, that's what she boiled it all down to. It's the big takeaway from a life that was, in every sense of the word, truly American. So let's get into it. This is the story of the woman who said those words. We're going to trace the life of Elizabeth King Spangler and see exactly how her incredible journey led her to that one powerful idea. All right, so our story begins in York, Pennsylvania. And you gotta picture this. It's a busy, German-speaking household, and the country is brand new. I mean, George Washington was still president. That's how far back we're going. Yeah, 12 kids. Can you even imagine? Elizabeth grew up in what was basically a small village under one roof. She wasn't just part of a family. She was part of a team, a crowd. Everything was shared. Everything was loud. And those family bonds? They were forged in the chaos of everyday life, day in and day out. So when she was 19, she married a man named Daniel Spangler. He was a hardworking farmer, and yeah, there was a 15-year age gap between them. Now that might sound like a lot to us, but back then, it was pretty normal. He was an established guy, ready to support a family, and she was ready to start one. And they didn't waste any time. Their life together kicks off with this huge adventure. Barely a year after getting married, they pack up a wagon, say goodbye to everything they've ever known in Pennsylvania, and head south. They were chasing the promise of good, affordable farmland down in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. But this new life, this new beginning, it wasn't all just opportunity and open fields. It also brought a kind of heartbreak so deep that it would really define who she became for the rest of her life. And these are her actual words from that interview, talking about losing her very first child, Anna Katrina, in 1816. And then just 4 years later, it happened again with another baby, Henry. She said that grief was so intense, it felt like it literally broke her heart in two. Now, think about this. This was a time with almost no modern medicine, no real understanding of why children got sick. So how she dealt with that grief, how she found a way to make sense of it all, that's what's so incredible about her story. She had to find the strength to go on, completely on her own. And she came to this incredibly powerful conclusion. She realized that to really love a child, meant you were risking the absolute worst pain imaginable, the pain of loss. But what was the alternative? Not loving at all? To just shut down your heart? She decided that was a guaranteed kind of emptiness, and to her, that was so much worse. And that idea, that choice to keep loving, became her guide. She and Daniel went on to have 8 more children, who all grew up to be adults, and she said that those early, terrible losses taught her something priceless, to treasure every single day with the children she had. Okay, so after 13 years in Virginia, the family actually moves back to Pennsylvania. Their big adventure wasn't over yet, and it's back home where something else happens, something that's going to change Elizabeth's life forever. This time, it's about a father's love and foresight. So when her father, Philip Jacob King, died, his will wasn't just some standard document. No way. It had something in it that was so unusual, so revolutionary for the 1820s, that it gave her a kind of security and independence that most women could only dream of. To really get why this was such a big deal, you have to understand the law back then. It's wild. For a married woman, her legal identity was basically absorbed by her husband. She didn't own property, her earnings weren't hers, everything belonged to him. Her entire financial future was completely 100% dependent on her husband. But her dad was smart. He found a way around that whole system. He set up a trust for her. He left her some money up front, plus an extra $1,000, which was a ton of money back then, in this trust. And here's the brilliant part. Legally, that money was hers. It wasn't her husband's. It gave her her own personal income every single year, paid right to her. So you see, this wasn't just about cash. It was so much more. It was freedom. It was security. And it was even a gift to the next generation because her kids would inherit it. And man, did that prove to be important. When her husband Daniel died in 1851, that trust meant she wasn't left destitute. She had dignity and independence as a widow, something that was incredibly rare. All right, so as the years go by, Elizabeth becomes the matriarch, the head of this growing family. And her family story starts to mirror America's story. As the country expanded west, so did her family. And I love this metaphor she used. She described her family as a tree whose seeds were being blown across the country, taking root in new places. You can just feel the mix of emotions in that, right? The pride of seeing them go off and build their own lives, but also that little bit of a mother's sadness, watching them go so far away. And even though she missed them like crazy, she was so proud of their courage. They were heading out to places like Iowa and Illinois, places that must have seemed like the other side of the world to her. And think about it, they were traveling by train. It was a completely different world from the slow, bone-jarring wagon trip she and Daniel had taken all those years ago. This chart just puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The sheer amount of change she saw in one lifetime is just staggering. She was born when the U.S. had only 16 states and George Washington was in charge. By the time of this interview, there were 33 states, and the country was on the verge of tearing itself apart in the Civil War. She went from a world that moved at the speed of a horse to one that moved at the speed of a steam engine. Incredible. So this brings us to the big question. After all this, all the personal joy and sorrow, all the massive changes in the country, what was the big lesson? What was the wisdom she really wanted to pass on? Well, she boiled it all down to these 5 simple but really powerful ideas for her grandkids. There's nothing fancy here, just core values that had been tested by fire, by hardship, by loss, and by navigating a world that was constantly changing. And this quote, this really sums it all up. For Elizabeth, the real inheritance, the thing that truly mattered, wasn't the farm or the money in that trust. The real treasure was this legacy of love, of sticking together, of being brave. That's what she hoped would last for generations to come. It's pretty amazing that we have her story in her own words from all the way back in 1860. It's a powerful reminder that we're all connected to the people who came before us. And it leaves us with one last big question to think about in our own lives.